First thing I'm going to do is wash this down with some soap and water, clean it up real good, and then I'm going to hit it with some 400 grit sandpaper and wet sand it with some water and see what it looks like. So let me get to that. Okay, I got it pretty well scrubbed down. I just a little bit of Windex and a sponge and rinse it off pretty good. So now I'm going to go ahead and get some wet dry sandpaper and sand it, and I'll show you what it looks like. Make sure you stay away from anything you don't tape off. You don't have to sand this very much either to figure out what's going on. Try to stay away from your sharp edges too. Remember, I'm not trying to do a finish. I'm just trying to see where I'm at with the shape. Be careful on these curves. See how it broke through that real easily? So let me get this done and I'll get a little bit further and I'll show it to you. Oh, I forgot to tell you, this light area underneath that's not metal or that's actually the lighter primer that we used. I went ahead and I used at the end of the year the darker primer to seal everything off, and so that's why this is darker and that's lighter, but it'll still show me how well things look and shaped out. So let me go ahead and do some more sanding and see how it looks. Oh, and one more thing, don't let anything dry on here. Keep it wet and rinse it off if it starts to dry. You don't want that stuff caking on there. It gets, I mean, it's not hard to get off, it's just a pain in the butt. It's easier to just make sure it's wet and clean it off. Alright, I'm almost done sanding to see how the body turned out, you know, under 400 grit wet sand. And one of the nice things about using that older primer, since it's basically not going to go on the metal, but it can go over this, is that, you know, to seal it up for weather and stuff. I'll use the recommended primer underneath the actual paint that I'm going to use on this. But again, one of the nice things about using the older primer is because they're two different colors. You see, here's the primer that's actually recommended by the paint, and here's the primer I've been using to do the undercoat and the body and stuff. When I use that darker primer and then I go to wet sand off, it shows me how the body looks, because you can start to see the lines going through it. Like here, see how it's kind of bright right here, and then it's bright up here, and then it's kind of dark in here, and it's light all the way around it, and then dark right here. This tells me that this area right here is a little bit lower than the rest of it. You can actually see it kind of come up here, and then it gets dark. I didn't sand that much up here, but you can see that. So that's kind of nice in that it shows that, it reveals that. It'll find any imperfections in your bodywork like this, any scratches or hairs that got in your work while you were doing it. Let's see, down here you can see where I hadn't finished actually doing the work. Down here you can see some splotches and some scratches and stuff where I wasn't using the 220. I was using the well, I mean, I was using the no, that's right, I was using like the 120 instead of the 220 for finishing. But you can actually see a fairly smooth transition through here all the way down through here, and I need to sand this down some more to look at that, but I just wanted to show you that. So let me get back to doing some more sanding and then I'll show it to you. All right, I've done quite a bit of sanding. You can see I've sanded right down to where I can start to see the base primer underneath it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wet this down and see what it looks like when the water flows off of it, because that'll really kind of tell what it looks like when it's got some gloss on it. And that's pretty straight. That looks really, really good. Better than I expected, actually. That's what it's going to look like when it gets gloss paint on it. I didn't really do any body work down here in this area because it didn't really need any. I did like a little bit right there where there was a pinhole. I think I remember showing you guys that. This area turned out much better than I thought. It curves right into the curve on the door. Much better than I thought it was going to. And you can even see the curve right here where the water is, where I sanded through. I was sanding here and then on here and then just occasionally going over the seam. You could see where the seam bled right through the door like I was supposed to, or through the edge. And the roundness went right up to the door. Let's see here. So that's what it's going to look like when it gets painted. You don't see any real dips or bulges or imperfections or anything. Not enough that would warrant me going through and redoing the job. So let's see how this looks here. Kind of hard to tell because the let me see if I can get a better view right here for you. There you are. See, it's nice and flat. Yeah, I think that's gonna work. So looks like all we have to do is work on this up here, maybe a little bit. I'm not sure how much. I don't even know if it really needs that much in here. It looks really good. And I wet sanded all this down again. Still have to play with this a little bit, or some bare metal, but we'll work on that. So let me shine it this way. Yep, I think that's gonna work. Just let me fill all the little pinholes and take care of all this crap. Get up in that channel a little bit more and play with that. And I think we could be ready to paint here real soon. Alright, I decided to go ahead and dry it off and show you what it looks like with 400 grit wet sand. And actually I'm pretty pleased with it. It looks pretty good, especially up in here. That looks really sweet. You wouldn't even know that there was a weld right here and running all the way up there. You just can't see it at all. Okay, whoop, focus. It doesn't like to focus on reflective surfaces. So here we go. I got to stay close to the body so you can see the reflections. And I'll probably go back over this with 600 grit and see if I can find anything else. This little spot right here, turns out it must be a piece of dirt or something that got in the paint, so I'll have to sand that out and primer it up. This is just smooth as glass, And I just, no ripples or waviness or bumpy in it or anything. There was a little bit right in here. There's a little bit of waviness in here. And I think a couple of thick layers of primer and a board sand will take those out. You might even be able to see them if I get down here real close. I don't know if you can see them or not. There, you might be able to see them right there. There's a little bit of waviness right there in a couple of them. Right there. See the waviness right up in here? I mean, it's so minute. I mean, you'd have to be sitting like this on the car in order to see that. If we painted this and buffed it out. So this area right here was just slightly high. I could barely feel it. I'm really not sure if I'm going to even do that or not. It's because it's so minute, and you know, the car's not worth that much. But I'm really ecstatic and just how well this has turned out. Of course, you know what they say: the more work time you put into it, the better your paint job. So again, thanks for watching, guys. God bless you, and Keith Nunny out. Bye.